Hello, welcome to the Dino Six-Pack Dynasty Football Podcast. I'm your host, Jordan Schultz, and today I'm joined by Mike LaPlante, and we're going to be talking about this year's running back and wide receiver class from the incoming rookies. Before we get started, make sure to hit that like and subscribe button to see more content like this. While you're at it, make sure to become an all-access member of Fantasy Six-Pack. When you do that, you get access to all of our award-winning rankings. We have DFS projections, betting tools. Best of all, you get access to come join us in our Discord forum where you can message us directly, get customized tips on your fantasy league specifically. All around great tool. Head on over there to fantasysixpack.net/plans and get signed up today. All right, well, let's get started here. Talking about some running backs here.
Absolutely.
So coming in at the top, tier one, I don't think I'm going to be really surprising anybody here. We got Bijan Robinson coming into the Atlanta Falcons. I don't want to get too crazy here. When you look at the success rate of first-round running backs, and especially running backs drafted in the top half of the first round, the success rate is insanely high. Tyler Algier, probably going to be one of the more important handcuffs this year, but I really don't see anybody else on the depth chart that's going to challenge him for touches. Already going to be one of the better running backs in the league the second he steps on the floor, as soon as he steps on the field. In college, only had 19 receptions that last year, but he was able to go 16.5 yards per catch on those. So he still put up 314 yards, another 2 scores there. One of those guys that looks like he's going to be generational, can do everything. I'm going to guess he's probably your RB1 out of the rookies for redraft as well too. But what's kind of your just general thoughts here on Bijan?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, out of rookies, he's one. Talking just straight up redraft rankings, I have him just in my second tier at running back 6. But even so, for a rookie running back, you love seeing a guy in the top 10, let alone that close to the top 5. Like you said, success to running backs drafted top half. More specifically, top 10 drafted running backs going back all the way to 2012. We'll start with Trent Richardson, 3rd overall pick. Their rookie years, they always finish in the top 10. It's given. His rookie year, RB8, 2015. Todd Gurley, 10th pick overall, just right on the edge, but still finished as RB7. His overall pick, he finished as the RB2 that year when he was a rookie. And then you got CMC and Leonard Fournette in the 2017 draft. Fournette going 4th, CMC going 8th. Both of them finished in the top 10. Not top 10. Both of them finished as RB1s is what I meant at. RB11 for CMC. Fournette was RB8. That was shocking because I expected CMC to actually be that one. So, yeah, there's great success for guys here drafted in the top. And, granted, those are all half-point PPR scoring. If they use him as much in the passing game, he'll probably be even higher in the PPR rankings.
Absolutely. I mean, when we're talking about those pass-catching running backs, that perfect transition into number 2 here. We got Jahmyr Gibbs, who also kind of falls under that same umbrella as, a top half of the first round pick. After they cleared the way by getting rid of DeAndre Swift post-draft, I think there's going to be a ton of volume for him there. Talking about those PPR leagues, he had 44 catches last year, his final year in college. I believe that was second only to Evan Hull in the entire nation. Added another 444 yards, 3 scores through the air. So he's a guy that even if he's only getting 10 to 12 carries a game, he's probably going to be getting 4 to 6 targets. So that's going to give him a nice floor for those PPR leagues. Another guy that I think you're going to see him going in the second round of startup drafts by the time we get closer to the season. And again, just one of those rookies I have no qualms about. Lock and load, throw him in your starting lineup, and just enjoy that on your dynasty team for the next 5 to 6 years, which is a lifetime when you're talking about running backs, really.
Yeah. Realistically, I would, you're the dynasty expert here, but I always try to go at a 3-year pace. And, if you can get a running back that gets 6 years, that's 2 lifetimes in dynasty. But yeah, Jahmyr Gibbs, he was close to cracking my top 15. He ended up being RB17 for redraft, which, it's not bad at all. Still, mid-round RB2. My personal thing here is I just really don't trust Lions RBs with how Dan Campbell wants to run this offense. It's a clear 2-headed monster. There is no one guy.
Too, because he hurt
not necessarily. I did have some DeAndre Swift shares, but I try my best not to take him personally because, this is the NFL. It's a business. They do what they want to do. They don't give a shit about us. You know what I mean? But the biggest thing is just even when DeAndre Swift was healthy, it was a clear 50-50. They wanted, 2 different guys to fill 2 different roles. So it's not that I think Jahmyr Gibbs is strictly only going to do passing. He's going to get worked in on the ground because this team loves to run the ball, especially when you got Jared Goff at quarterback. All right, they got to be balanced. They, upgraded the defense so they could run the ball a little bit more. So there is opportunity here, and I do love the upside. Coming from Alabama, those 44 receptions, second to Evan Hull, like you said. So there's a ton of upside here. I just don't trust the divvy of the workload. That's what scares me here. That's all, which makes me think that, most of his value will come from the PPR.
Yeah. Which, I mean, where you're kind of coming at it from more of a redraft perspective, that makes sense, where if he's not going to have, those guaranteed touches, you're really just basically banking on him catching 5-6 passes a week right away to have fantasy relevance.
So it really banks on the ADP when it breaks down to the redraft for me. If I'm going to be getting a ton of Jahmyr Gibbs shares, because I might just be, saying, I like David Montgomery a little bit cheaper.
Yeah, he can wait a few rounds, go grab him. And I mean, you saw what Jamal Williams did last year. I don't see any reason that he can't do 90% of that this year.
But long term, love this guy. He's explosive. He's what they wanted Swift to be.
Yeah, exactly. I think that's exactly it. He's going to come in and they're going to give him all the touches that I wanted DeAndre Swift to have the last couple of years. And yeah, I think he's going to put up big numbers for you.
Future's bright for him. I'm just not so high on him redraft this year.
Yeah, and that makes sense. I mean, anytime you're betting on any rookie, I mean, granted that first half of the top half of the first round, a lot of success rate, but it's still there is still a chance, that
there is. When I did the data, man, I went back. I think it was the year after Trent Richardson, Ryan Matthews, 10th overall. I was like, oh man, oh no, 11th overall. I was like, oh, he had to have finished good. I think he was like RB50 his rookie year. So it doesn't always work out for those guys in the teams getting drafted. But you know what? There is still that chance because you got that high draft capital.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And looking at how the Lions have rebuilt that team so quickly, I kind of give them the benefit of the doubt when they reach up for a running, or what we perceive as a reach for the running back there.
No, it's not a reach because now they got a 5th-year option. I don't mind the running back in the first round. It's just you got to make sure it's the guy, because otherwise you're dealing with a Rashad Penny or a Clyde Edwards-Helaire.
Yeah, I mean, it can work out great. I'm a Cowboys fan, so I have nothing but positive things to say about Zeke and what we got out of him for 6-7 years. I mean, that's best case scenario for
it really is. That's what everybody's attaining, trying to strive for when they get those running backs in the first round. We want that Zeke career, just exactly. 6 to 8 solid years, which I think Jahmyr Gibbs could give you, especially with the passing game.
Definitely. Let's move it on down here to tier number 3, and this is where we kind of start to actually have real tiers instead of just kind of one-person tiers. Coming at number 3 here, I got Zach Charbonnet. He was also my number 3 pre-draft. Number 4, Kendre Miller, also had him number 4 pre-draft, and then at number 5, Devon Achane. Had him at number, I believe, 7 pre-draft, but that landing spot in Miami is just too juicy. I had to bring him up into that next tier. Looking at here, I think there's a kind of a wide variety of what you can expect in the first year. I think really all 3 guys will probably start the year third in line for touches there, because each team has some veterans ahead of them. They're a little bit more established, but I do think there are guys that by the time you get to games 8 to 12, I think they're going to be the ones that are the main RB1s on their team, especially Kendre Miller, especially Devon Achane. I mean, you couldn't have drawn up a better landing spot for Achane. That no team like the Dolphins prioritizes speed like they do. I mean, and how you put him in there with Tyreek and Jalen Waddle, and that's just a defensive nightmare to try and stop.
I mean, not just that, I think the Dolphins had a total of 5 draft picks this year, 5 total, especially with the scandal with the Tom Brady a couple years ago. 5 draft picks, and they had some holes to fill, and they decided to go get a third running back. They plan on using him.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. What do you think about Charbonnet in Seattle? That was the one that I kind of out of all the landing spots, that's the one where I was just man, that sucks. For everybody involved, really.
It really does. It really does. Except for Pete Carroll. Pete Carroll over there is just jumping for joy because he's getting exactly what he wants. Another running back to pound it down the defense's throat. I mean, we know how this offense likes to run when it's running well. Even when Geno Smith was good last year, they don't want it to be on the back of Geno. All right, they want it to be on the back of the rushing game and then get some play action worked involved there. Get the tight ends and then, your deep shots to DK and Tyler Lockett. All right, so there is value here for Charbonnet. I see him more of, as finishing in the RB2, RB3 range, possibly worst case scenario, just because of the mass volume that I think Pete Carroll wants to run the ball. And, I mean, we saw Kenneth Walker last year, absolute stud, don't get me wrong. But if you can't stay healthy, your best ability is availability. And if he doesn't have it, Charbonnet is going to sweep up all that value, and he's going to be this is that range, Jordan. And I didn't want to, say it already because I wanted to wait for Achane and Miller.
Mm-hmm.
But this is that range where you could find a possible league winner this year.
Yeah.
In the last round, the last couple of rounds of your draft, maybe the last 5 rounds, like you said, week 8, when the RB injuries start to pile up, the RBs start to get a little fatigued, unless your name's Derrick Henry. But, that's when they get worked in more, and that's where you find these league winners. I mean, players like Alvin Kamara, when he first came up on the spot, that's how he made his name. I mean, he was involved a little bit in the beginning, but then once that second half of the season started, this tier of RBs, they're going to be making a name for themselves.
Yeah, this is one of the better running back classes that's kind of came out in the last few years, outside of
it's just a shame the market value.
It's deep.
Yeah, it's just a shame of the market value of how the NFL views running backs at the moment because it's a passing league.
I feel like anymore, like when you look at running backs, like outside of the first round ones, like you kind of almost just have to subtract a round from like where they actually went. Like, like the guys that are going early 3rd round, those are guys that traditionally probably more 2nd round running backs.
Yep.
I feel like you can kind of just do that all the way down the board. Like the guys that go around
big time
now are basically like day 2 picks for running backs now.
Like, I know we'll talk about him later, but like another guy, like you said, that went way later that I apply, like, what? I think you'd be going around earlier, in my opinion, if the market was corrected. Chase Brown. Great example. Yeah, but I don't want to talk about him just yet.
Yeah, we'll get to him next. You'd kind of mentioned Derrick Henry, and so that's a perfect transition into tier number 4 here for my running backs. Number 6, leading it off, is Tyjae Spears. I had him number 5 pre-draft, which, fun fact, my top 5 running backs pre-draft were the first 5 running backs off the board in the actual NFL draft, so that was pretty cool. Not that means anything long-term, but it was kind of a cool little thing to brag about in the moment.
Absolutely.
Tyjae Spears, man, absolutely love him. I don't love that he doesn't have an ACL, but I love the timing that came out, like right into
I knew it was coming up.
Just pushed down lower and lower, and I'm just snatching him up in the back half of the 2nd round, just over and over and over. You look at what the Titans have done; they want to turn it over to the U3 movement, kind of start looking at that next era there. I think that once you see Will Levis, for sure, better than Ryan Tannehill when he's ready to take over the job, I wouldn't be surprised to see Derrick Henry get moved, and then at that point, it's all wheels up for Spears and Levis and the youth movement over there in Tennessee. So he's the guy that I'm buying now, and I'm not really expecting anything out of the first half of the season, but second half of the year, I think he's the guy that could be very valuable for you. Similar with Tank Bigsby and Roschon Johnson, they kind of are in a similar spot where they're going to start off the year, I think, as the RB2 for their teams. Roschon may have a little bit more of an uphill battle because he has Herbert and Foreman ahead of him, but I think that he's going to be better than both of those guys.
I'd count Fields too, but that's just
that's true. But so I mean, those guys, especially Bigsby, I think he's going to come in right away, and he's going to have a role, kind of like a poor man's version of like what Zeke was last year, playing with ETN. These guys are all going end of the 2nd round. For rookie drafts, that is. All of them got pretty good capital. They all got either 3rd or 4th round capital, which I said I kind of look at as those as day 2 picks now for running backs. Yeah. The big mystery here for me is obviously Roschon Johnson, just because we didn't get to see him a lot because, he's just buried behind one of the better running back prospects we've seen in the last few years. But I like his landing spot there in Chicago. I think he does some things that will complement Herbert really well there. Anybody in this group particularly you like for redraft purposes, or what are your kind of thoughts just in this group here altogether?
I mean, personally, like redraft purposes, out of this group, I think I like Tank Bigsby the most because I'm not a big believer in Snoop Connor, and obviously the Jaguars aren't by drafting Tank Bigsby. Mm-hmm. And Etienne, I love the guy. Don't get me wrong, I love the guy, but sometimes he just goes through mental lapses, it seems like. He
just disappears, it seems like, for stress.
Yeah. And they need that, Doug Peterson, they need that running game to work for the RPOs, the play action, all that to work. That's his offense. We've seen it win a Super Bowl. And, if he gets the pieces he wants, we're going to get a good offense here in Jacksonville. And we saw, a sneak peek of it last year at the end of the year. So if that offense can continue to do what it does, I like Tank Bigsby the most here, with the opportunity. I do like Tyjae Spears. The ACL scares me a little bit, or lack of.
Like running back years, 3 years is a lifetime. So, I mean.
Exactly. And in Dynasty, you're getting 3 years. That's marvelous. I mean, because that's what you want to go for. And at least for what I want to do in Dynasty, I want to take it in 3-year increments.
Yeah. Even if you're rebuilding, there's no reason for a rebuild to take more than 2 or 3 seasons. No.
But yeah, if I had to rank it, sorry, didn't mean to interrupt you, but if I had to rank it, it'd probably be Tank, Tyjae, and then Roschon. And I mean, it's not very far off from what you got either. But yeah, just because I think the offense is going to be better. And when you get a running back on a better offense, the ceiling gets raised because of the touchdown opportunities. I just don't know if with Tannehill being, the guy in Tennessee, if he can come back and show exactly what he did, all right, good. There's going to be more touchdown opportunities there. But even so, Tannehill likes to rush it in, and they're going to use Derrick Henry in the red zone. So I look at it that way as kind of like the tiebreaker, and that's where I lean Tank.
No, it makes a lot of sense. I mean, you think about what James Robinson was able to do early in the year last year there playing with ETN. I mean, there's no reason Bigsby can't come in and do 80% of that.
Yeah, I mean, I would love to see it because I got him in a decent amount of rookie drafts.
Yeah. Moving down to our next tier. This will be tier number 5, I believe. And this is going to take us through the end of my top 12 here. We got 4 guys in this group. The first guy that I really feel like I missed on in the draft was Izzy Abanikanda. I had him at number 6 starting off. Did not see him slide included the 6th round, so had to adjust a little bit, moved him down to number 9 now. And then rounding out the tier is a guy you previously mentioned, Chase Brown for the Bengals, Eric Gray for the Giants, and then my guy Deuce Vaughn for the Cowboys, which may seem like a homer pick, but just think back a few years ago about what they were able to do with Tony Pollard as they kind of brought him along slowly. I could see a similar role for Deuce Vaughn as he kind of slowly gets brought into this weapon or this offense as a weapon.
And he's going to be a stud on special teams, and that's just going to work even more playing opportunity for him.
If you get those return yardages in your fantasy league, like absolutely, these are guys that you want to look at there for sure. And general kind of thoughts here on these guys. Any of them, I mean, I don't know if any of them will really have any redraft value, like unless the Bengals do move on from Joe Mixon. But they are guys that I could see a path to having playing time. Weirdly, out of all of them, I think Izzy Abanikanda has the clearest path to playing time right away just because Breece Hall is working his way back in. And I could see him coming in and really securing that number 2 running back job to where he is more of like a low-end flex play to close out the year when Breece Hall is back. But what's your general thoughts on kind of this grouping of guys here?
I mean, I 100% agree with you on Israel. He does have the clearest path because of the Breece Hall injury. Any NFL player coming off an ACL injury, they're never the same the first year. So even coming back this year, I don't think Breece Hall is going to be a stud. He'll give you great value depending on where you get him in drafts, but Israel is going to be the guy that's going to be coming out the gates for him. So I agree with you 100% on that. The guy, though, who I like the most long-term is definitely my guy, Chase Brown.
Yeah.
All right. It's a little bit of a homer pick for me, even though I'm not an Illinois fan. I'm in Wisconsin, so I'm more of a Wisconsin fan. But, when they play, you see Chase Brown, and this guy is a stud. I mean, both Brown brothers are a stud. Sydney's going to be a stud on the Eagles. But
I didn't realize they were related.
Yeah, no, they're actually twins.
No kidding.
Yeah, no, and Illinois had a stud secondary this year because they had, I'm blanking on his name, but the corner that went to Seattle at number 5. But yeah, they had a stud secondary, and but going back to Chase Brown because I'm I'm rambling. The news of the Joe Mixon thing, I don't like. This is a Super Bowl contending team. I do not think they cut Joe Mixon. There's going to be some sort of a restructure on this. Mm-hmm. All right, but with that, With that being said, this is a team, all right, that loves to give the RB2 in this offense 30% of the rushing attempts. Mm-hmm. All right. Last year with P. Ryan, all right, he even got 30.5% of the running back targets. And I know that's a little inflated, but it's strictly RB targets. All right. And that equated to 51. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, I do think there is possible league-winning value here. Even later in Chase Brown, but the stars have to align. Mm-hmm. All right, because this is the NFL. This is not college anymore. He was a stud in college. I hope he's a stud in the NFL, but these are all rookies. This is all potential we're talking about. He may not be as good as I hope he is. You know what? But at that value in rookie drafts, though, and what he's going to go in redraft, why not take him in the last couple rounds?
Oh, yeah.
Why not? He will, I believe, by week, the second half, week 9 to 10 area. I do think he gets more involved, like, a Kendre Miller, like a Devon Achane. Because I was actually shocked he fell as far as he did, but that's the way of the NFL.
Yeah, definitely. So rounding out running backs here, I'm just going to kind of give a quick mention to a couple of guys that fell just outside my top 12. So for me, coming in at 13 and 14, we have Evan Hull. Kind of previously mentioned him, and again, he's just a guy that for PPR leagues you're going to want to put in there, and potentially years 2 and 3 of his career, he's a guy that can maybe be like a low end flex play for you in PPR leagues. Number 14, we got DeWayne McBride for the Vikings. They're another team that's kind of been rumored to potentially be moving on from the running back, and again, I don't know that I really buy it, but if he did end up moving on, I mean, he's the type of guy that could fill in that Dalvin Cook role right away. Just powerhouse guys.
He moved on from their Twitter banner, so that's one step.
I did notice, that Addison's a guy on there now. So
take read into it what you will, but I thought that was kind of funny.
And then any other guys you wanted to mention for redraft before we kick it over to receivers?
I mean, if Dalvin Cook gets traded, I do think McBride has some value there, especially because this is a guy you're getting in the 4th round of rookie drafts, like really super late. Like there was no opportunity cost at all to get this guy. And if the rumors are true and Cook gets traded or even cut like DeAndre Hopkins did today, just to save cap money, I do think DeWayne McBride, I said that right? I believe it's DeWayne McBride, correct. I do think he can have some value there, but that is not only do the stars have to align, but the planets and everything else in the solar system has to align as well.
Yeah. All right, well, let's kick it on over to the wide receiver position. This is kind of where you really like anchor your dynasty teams is around these guys here. One of the deeper classes, I would say, doesn't have as much high-end star talent, I think, but I do think there's probably going to be 7, 8 guys here that I'm not going to be surprised if they finish.
A lot of good role players in this draft for NFL teams.
Yeah, and much like the running back position, I have kind of a single tier up at the top with Jaxon Smith-Njigba. Went 20th overall to the Seahawks. Another guy, like the Seahawks, man, like they got awesome players, but the situations for fantasy is just kind of frustrating. I still think that by the end of the first year, JSN is going to be like the clear-cut number 2 behind DK there. But I think there are going to be some growing pains at the start while Lockett is still very heavily involved in that offense. Again, we mentioned Charbonnet they brought in. They still have Kenneth Walker, who I think the majority of the offense is going to run through. But long-term, when you're looking at years 2 and 3, I don't think anybody in this class has the potential ceiling details. I don't really think it's even that close. I think having the year off last year where he's battling injury, I think that's kind of made people forget a little bit of how good he was, similar to like what happened to Michael Parsons after he sat out the COVID year. He ended up dropping down to 12 to Dallas. And I mean, we've seen what's happened the last few years with him. I think
the COVID situation has created a lot of value for NFL teams here because a lot of players are falling because, they had that COVID year. A lot of teams are looking at that COVID year and just scratching it because now, you get all these older guys coming out now, but there's a lot of value going around here because of that COVID year. I'm going to, it's silly to say, but I'm going to miss that value.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It kind of threw things off, like for a lot of these guys. Like you don't see it as much in football, but I think you saw it like in baseball, especially like the minor leagues. They've had a rough couple of years, and I think it's just that year of development they missed out on. I think it's just a lot tougher in baseball than football, but I mean, you're still seeing similar things here. I mean, I feel like was Kayshon Boutte a freshman in 2020, or was he a 2021 freshman?
It was 2020 because he came out as soon as he could. Because I remember everybody, when he had that freshman year in 2020, everybody wanted him to come out. And it's like, dude, he's a freshman.
Yeah. I mean, shoot, it would have been the good call looking at what happened to him now. But yeah.
And that's a great, guy right there who I think, the Patriots scooped up some value with him, because we're talking about a guy that, played against the top talent in college in the SEC on LSU. So, I mean, he had the play. It's a little bit banged up with the injuries, so, it's a little unfortunate, but he had to play against the, toughest competition in the country. And he got to a good place where there's not very many wide receivers that can challenge for playing.
And I mean, you just go back 12 months ago. And I mean, he was a guy that was arguably the wide receiver 1 in this class. Like, he was definitely in that conversation.
Till that combine hit and everyone realized he can only jump 27 inches.
Yeah, that was like the final nail in this coffin. It just was like a terrible few weeks for him.
Going back to JSN though, real quick for you. This year I would put JSN and Addison in the same tier just for redraft purposes, but I do agree with you when you're talking Dynasty, JSN is the clear number 1 talent in this class, and I do think when Lockett eventually decides to get worked out of this offense or retires, it is going to be him, no doubt. All right. It's just a combination of so many people. You got DK Metcalf, Lockett. I mean, Geno Smith, and the combination of Pete Carroll knowing we want to run the ball. So, like you said, it's going to be rough out the gates. I don't it's going to be bad to say, but like right now, he's going on best ball for underdog as wide receiver 30. All right. That's, I think, is his ceiling this year. Just because of all of the people around him, an overall 60 ADP. So, I love JSN long-term. If you got him in Dynasty, congratulations.
Yeah.
I just don't know if I'm going to be drafting him this year in a redraft. Because
he's going high. You're not getting much of a rookie discount on him. He's going.
No, and he's being drafted at his ceiling. And that's the thing is I want to get the guys that are not being drafted at their floors.
Yeah.
All right. Sense. So and that's why, just personally, I do edge out Addison this year, just redraft value. I haven't had the exact ranks on him yet, but I know Addison is they're going to be close, but Addison's probably going to be a 1 or 2 spots ahead of JSN just for redraft purposes.
Yeah, that makes sense. Well, let's go ahead and move it on over to Jordan Addison. He is the guy that headlines tier number 2 for me. And I do agree. I have him in a tier with Zay Flowers and Quentin Johnston. But at least right away, I think that he's a pretty clear step above those two. I think when you're talking about potential ceilings down the road, I think there's a case where you can make for Flowers and Johnston to potentially have a better career. But for me personally, Addison's my clear-cut number 2. If I come up to draft and those 3 receivers are on the board, I'm not even thinking twice about it. I'm smashing draft for Jordan Addison there. A lot of people that I've kind of talked about, they're down on him because of the landing spot. He's playing across from Justin Jefferson. So does T. Higgins. Look what he does with Ja'Marr Chase there. This is going to be the first time that Jefferson's had a legitimate threat across from him besides an aging Adam Thielen to help open up space for him. I think
how dare you? How dare you talk smack about Adam Thielen? No, I do agree with you here. The thing is Justin Jefferson obviously is the clear winner because now you're getting less attention even on him. You can't double team him if, Addison's going to be going off, which I do think there's a chance here that he can be.
Because I think he's a top 36 receiver year 1.
Exactly. The biggest thing here for me and why I'm kind of a little bit higher on Addison this year is because of the vacated targets from Adam Thielen. There's 107 vacated targets from Thielen, and when he's healthy, that's about the average of the second wide receiver in this offense. Even when we had Zimmer coaching this offense, that was about what Thielen average was, that 100 to 110 range for targets. So I can see Addison clearly getting that. The one thing is TJ Hockenson scares me a little bit because of how involved he was, and then obviously because of the dynasty format, where we're talking here, I don't like Kirk Cousins being the quarterback here.
Yeah.
All right. There is a clear end to his run, and who's going to be then throwing the ball to him? That's kind of what I'm most concerned about. I know with the draft capital the Seahawks have, they're going to be able to move up next year to get a quarterback possibly for Geno Smith.
Yeah.
All right. So I don't worry at all for JSN dynasty wise, but Addison, long term scares me a little bit. But this year I'm jumping all over him. Zay Flowers scares me a little bit just because the amount of options in this offense, the signing of Odell Beckham, you got Mark Andrews, who's the clear number 1. You got Rashad Bateman coming back from the injury. I know, and I'm not going to be that high on him because he is coming back from a pretty bad injury. But you do get Todd Monken coming in here, the new offensive coordinator. Gotta love that. So it's honestly just the volume's not going to be there for Zay Flowers this year. All right. And I don't think the volume will be there for Quentin Johnston unless injuries happen with Mike Williams and Keenan Allen. Yeah. All right. Because
another guy there in that offense, I think Gerald Everett's going to have a big year. You look at what Kellen Moore was able to do with Dalton Schultz in Dallas the last few years. I think that you're going to see Gerald Everett have a pretty good year this year too. Yeah.
And how Kellen Moore, runs his offense? He runs that spread the ball type of mentality. So I don't see, there's not going to be a guy here with 180 targets.
No,
right?
Definitely not.
It's they split it between 2 players, and last year when not last year, but in 21 when Mike Williams and Keenan Allen were both healthy-ish mostly for the most part. They played 16 games, it said. The wide receiver 3 in that offense did get 97 targets.
More than I would have predicted.
All right. Now, that was a combination of the wide receiver 3s. They were flipping in there between Palmer and Guyton and the other one I can't remember. Yes, thank you.
Mhm.
So, that is the combination here. But, they wouldn't have drafted him in the first round if they didn't want him to be that number 3 guy. So I think there is a possibility here for a good year. All right. He's got a good floor, I think it is. He's got a good floor this year. And if there are any injuries to Keenan Allen or Mike Williams, he is going to skyrocket.
Mm-hmm.
But that's what you got. I mean, I'm not one. I always knock on wood. I'm not one to root for injuries, but that's his ticket to more playing time.
Yeah. I mean, and I think when you're looking at both of these guys, like what you said is correct. They need like an injury to really be fantasy relevant. But I mean, you look at some of the guys ahead of him, and we mentioned, Keenan Allen, Mike Williams, when you're looking over at the Ravens, Odell Beckham, like none of these guys have been exactly healthy for the last few years.
I'm not rooting for it, but I mean, there are chances here. There are realms of possibilities where this happens. It's just, you got to get lucky.
Yeah, I think one of my kind of hot takes I have this year, and I'm not fully ready to commit to it, but I'm like 90% there, is I think outside of Mark Andrews, Zay Flowers leads the Ravens in targets this year. I think that he's going to come in. I think he's going to be a clear step ahead of Rashad Bateman right away.
Yep.
I think Odell Beckham, the first few weeks is going to be awesome, and then I think he's going to kind of hopefully not get injured, but I think he's going to kind of slowly fade down from there. And I think Zay is going to be big league winner for you this year, dynasty and redraft, especially if you can be patient those first few weeks as he's kind of getting his feet wet. He's a guy that the second half I'm targeting all my leagues, really. I think he's my most drafted rookie so far, just based on where he's going.
I do. I love it. The talent is 100% there. The only thing that just kind of worries me is I don't know how Todd Monken's going to run this offense exactly.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
That's my only kind of like biggest variable here. And I try to stay away from the variables. You want to limit the variables in fantasy football, whether it's dynasty or redraft. And that's the biggest variable here is we got a brand new offense coming in, which means every single one of these wide receivers have to learn it all over again. Mm-hmm. All right. So, I mean, it is very possible that Zay Flowers, can be the leading guy on this team outside of, the leading wide receiver.
Yeah.
Because of the injury to Bateman, Odell coming to a new offense. He's, hasn't played football in a year and a half. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, there is a good chance. I mean, I wouldn't say it's that hot, but it's definitely hot.
Yeah. It's close. I'm not quite ready to go there, but it's one of those that when I'm looking at like future hot takes, I think that's going to be, or bold predictions. I like it.
I don't think I've heard it before, so I like it, Jordan.
Perfect. I'll take it. All right, moving down to next year, we got tier number 3 here. And this is where I think I really kind of start to deviate a little bit from some of the other ranks, at least that I've seen out there. At the top of this tier, I have Rashee Rice. So he's my number 5 overall. I have not seen him that high anywhere, really. I know it's something like we could be falling for the same trap, but I mean, a guy that they handpicked to go catch passes for Patrick Mahomes. Not a lot of other talent on the roster. I mean, Kadarius Toney, I mean, he's explosive, but I mean, he's got hamstrings that are just like made out of glass, it seems like. You got Marquez Valdez. I mean, he's just kind of a guy. They got rid of Mecole Hardman. So Sky Moore, I think Sky Moore is going to have a big year this year, and I think Rashee Rice by the end of the year will be the number 2 option out there, obviously behind Kelsey as well too. But I'm a big fan. Rashee Rice, insanely productive in college. Had 96 catches for 1,300 yards and 10 touchdowns last year. Kind of like a weird career if you go back and look at it. So he played 4 years there. 2 of the years he had 1 drop, and in between those 2 years he had a year of 9 and 10 drops. So it's kind of like, where is that actually going to be at? Is he kind of somewhere in the middle, or is he going to be kind of that boom bust player? Because if those drops are an issue, that's going to be the one thing I could see keeping him out of the lineup. But he has a skill set that no other receiver on the Chiefs can really replicate. So I think that he's going to be a guy that right away is going to be a big part of their offense.
Yeah, I mean, 2nd-round draft capital to a team with Patrick Mahomes, where they just let Juju go. Like you said, they let Mecole Hardman go. The biggest thing here is just, when are you going to play Rashee Rice is my only problem, because that's the problem with all Kansas City wide receivers is, the hardest thing is choosing when to play him. I love this guy in best ball. It's just, like I said, the hardest thing is just choosing which wide receiver is Patrick Mahomes going to throw to that week, because he has turned into the guy that if anybody he's targeting, it's Kelsey. Otherwise, he spreads the ball out as a good quarterback should. So that kind of scares me there. Is just, because if I was good at predicting, things like that, I'd be winning the lottery.
Right.
So predicting which receiver is going to go off in that offense that week outside of Travis Kelce is going to be a fairly difficult proposition. But I do love it long term because I don't see Kadarius Toney being a long term option with his body of glass. All right. I like Sky Moore. I wish he would have showed a little bit more production last year, but
Let's get down the stretch though.
Yeah, seeing what he got in the Super Bowl was positive. That's what I like seeing because they trusted him in the time where it mattered most. Mm-hmm. All right, so that means I think that he can slide into a decent role there. This tier kind of scares me just in general because, that's why I agree with you. I think I would put Rashee Rice number 1 in this tier as well, just because of the quarterback throwing to him.
Right. Clear step up from the other guys here.
You got 2 rookies throwing to the other 2 wide receivers there.
Yeah. Which I tend to mention those guys real quick just to round out that tier. Before we keep going on that, it's Jonathan Mingo, who went to the Panthers in the 2nd round, and then Josh Downs to the Colts, who was early 3rd round pick. Anyways, continue there.
My bad. I like to jump the gun. But yeah, no, I just typically tend to stay away from wide receivers that have rookie quarterbacks. All right, because I went back. I couldn't find it, man. I went back all the way to like 2005. I gave up, to be honest. But I could not find a wide receiver that finished as and now this is a high bar, but as a wide receiver 1 with a rookie quarterback.
Like the only one that I could think would probably come close off the top of my head would be like Andy Dalton and AJ Green, maybe.
That was he was I don't remember it exactly. I wish I would have wrote it down. But yeah, he was definitely close. I want to say if he didn't hit it, it was right on the edge of wide receiver 1 territory at that 12, 13, 14 range. But if you look at the statistics of wide receivers that get rookie quarterbacks, obviously it's awesome for the long term. Mm-hmm. But that first year, it's a learning process, for that rookie quarterback.
Both of them, yeah.
And not just rookie wide receivers. I'm meaning I tend to stay away from all wide receivers that kind of get rookie quarterbacks. Mm-hmm. All right, because even you look at Jonathan Mingo's partner Adam Thielen. I just don't. And Josh Downs' partner, Michael Pittman. I'm staying away from these guys this year just because of that rookie quarterback. Like, it just does not happen. And I could be wrong here, but if AJ Green was the one, it's like 1 out of what?
Yeah, I don't know if he did. It's just like
500.
That was even close.
And still so, that's like 0.5% chance of it actually hitting like that. So that's my only thing, and that's why I do tend to lean Rashee Rice with you in this tier because of just the quarterback throwing to him.
Yeah,
I like Mingo and Downs long term, but this year they're going to struggle redraft wise.
I think Downs especially could have a real rough year because not only is it a rookie quarterback, it's a rookie quarterback that's going to do a good chunk of his damage on the ground. So I think the targets for Pittman as well, I think just in general are going to be a little bit limited this year. Long term, I'm a big fan of what they can do there. I think that Pittman's and Downs could be like a really good 1-2 combo for down there. But I do think that it's going to be rough for all parties involved there this first year. But that's good. Those are the type of guys I like to buy after they kind of have that post-hype kind of cool down.
Oh, yeah.
I'm going to snatch those guys back up where, I pay a late first for him now and you could trade a mid-second for him next year.
Yep. Go hit up the person that, is all upset because they had a bad year. Go get him from him.
Before we move on to the next tier here, Jonathan Mingo, I just kind of want to talk to him a little bit too. Because he was, as far as definitely receivers, I think out of every position, though, I think he was my biggest riser from pre to post drafts in my ranks. I had him clear down at 15 pre-draft. And if there was 2 more legit receivers that were 6'2" or taller, would he have got up as high as he did? Or did he benefit that basically it was Quentin, Johnston, and then him in terms of high upside, big bodied receivers? I think he kind of got pushed up a little bit due to that, just kind of the lack of scarcity of those types of guys. I don't know how good he actually is. I have him at number 6, obviously, so I'm a little bit of a buyer, but I don't know how much that's being influenced just by the draft capital that he got as opposed to how good I actually think he is.
Coming from Ole Miss too, where you got DK Metcalf and AJ Brown coming from there too. So there is kind of a lot of hype behind this guy, and I do agree with you. If he was in last year's class, I don't think he goes in the 2nd round because we had a lot more guys with that body type. This was a draft, like you said, it was very deep with slot receivers.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
All right, very deep with those playmakers, but guys like 6'2", like Quentin Johnston, Jonathan Mingo. I mean, you saw it with Dalton Kincaid, even. Those big-bodied guys. Because there wasn't very many, they got a little bit higher draft capital this year, and I'm kind of on the fence with you, like you with Mingo. I don't know how to perceive him because I want to say. He is good because he went to Ole Miss, like where DK and AJ Brown went to. I mean, you get studs like those coming out. I mean, they're doing something right down there. Mm-hmm. All right. But I mean, even so, he's on the Panthers, rookie quarterback, Bryce Young. So I'm probably going to be staying away from him, like I said, this year. But, I mean, if he shows flashes down the stretch, because this is where rookie receivers and basically all rookies, that's where they show it down the stretch of the year. If he can show some flashes, he's definitely going to be one of these post-hype guys I'm going to be targeting as well. It's just I am on the fence with him still. He's a hard code to crack.
He didn't really do a lot in college. Like the last year he's there, he only had 51 catches. I'm pretty sure like the only person that we're talking about today that had less than that was Cedric Tillman, who broke his foot and missed 3 or 4 games. Only had 51 catches, 5 touchdowns to 4 drops. Big play, averaged almost 17 yards a catch. So, I mean, the big play ability is there. Especially for fantasy, I think there could be a lot of frustrating weeks. And I don't know if he ever even really turns into one of those guys that's like an every week fantasy lock for you. I think there's definitely a little bit more of a lower floor there than with anybody else that we've talked about in this group.
Like, I mean, absolute worst case scenario I can see Mingo probably turning into is maybe like Terrace Marshall, somebody they already have. Mm-hmm. I mean, someone whose speed, can make him a deep threat. But outside of that, I mean, he's not going to be really an intricate part of this offense. Worst case scenario.
Yeah. All right, let's move up to the next tier here. So we got tier 4, and there's 5 guys here, and this rounds out my top 12. Didn't mean to end my tiers at 12. It just kind of magically happened like that. And the 5 guys we got here, all of them went in the 2nd or 3rd rounds of the NFL drafts. Number 8, we got Jayden Reed to the Packers. Number 9, my guy Tank Dell to the Texans. Number 10, previously mentioned Cedric Tillman, got him going to the Browns. Jalin Hyatt, number 11 to the Giants. And then rounding out my top 12 is Marvin Mims from the Broncos. I guess before I kind of dive in on any of these guys, what's just kind of like your general takeaway from this group? Are there any guys that you like more than others, or any guys you're completely fading?
I mean, I'm like you. I'm a homer, kind of like everybody else. I love Jayden Reed. Thing here with Jayden Reed is he's got some sneaky upside with the draft capital. All right. I mean, they not finally, but they get some help for Jordan Love. All right. We got 150 vacated targets between Allen Lazard and Randall Cobb here. All right. Now it is Jordan Love. They're going to be more balanced here, but I do think he's got some sneaky upside as their starting slot receiver. Mm-hmm. All right. So I love Jayden Reed the most out of this, but God, Cedric Tillman going to the Browns behind Amari Cooper. If that broken foot's healed, I do think, he could be, kind of a path to play player right away because I'm not a big believer in David Bell after last year.
Well, honestly, as far as Tillman goes, I think his tape, not last year in his shirt, but the year prior, I think what he did that year was better than like what Jalin Hyatt did this past year.
Yes.
I feel pretty confidently about that. I think Tillman's
and he's another one of those big-bodied guys, exactly. in this class. Mm-hmm. Yep, and that's the thing. If he can pan out well, he can play outside and inside. He won't be stuck to just the inside like a Jayden Reed might be stuck to. Tank Dell, he's intriguing. And like the name of Tank, man, you think he'd be bigger. It's a little deceptive, but I mean, there's nobody here on Houston for CJ Stroud to throw to.
He's insanely productive too, and like not at like a little like D2 school. I mean, Houston's a D1 school. They're not like big Power 5, but I mean, it's not like it's like a no-name school by any means.
So he's got good opportunity to play right away as well. Just because I mean, you got John Mechie, you got Nico Collins. They just traded Brandon Cooks. I mean,
Robert Wood they brought in.
Dalton Schultz might be the leading target guy. Might be the leading target guy on this team, possibly. But if not, I mean, there is chance here for Tank Dell because he's the type of player that he's going to be used more than just deep threat. He's going to get short underneath routes. He's gonna be explosive with those routes. All right.
Well, I mean, and CJ Stroud, I mean, the Texans came out and said that he pretty much said, like, hey, I want you guys to go get this guy. And they did. So I believe they're going to at least give him every chance to fail. Like, I think why at least try and take a job.
Exactly. I mean, that they went and traded up to the they got the number 2 pick and the number 3 pick to get their guys. They're going to listen to what their guys want. So I do think those are the ones that intrigue me the most, just because Jalin Hyatt, I think the talent's good. But there is just, that team is filled with slot receivers.
Or 2.0.
Yeah, I mean, maybe not just that. It's just like the opportunity too, where he went. I mean, you're going to a team that doesn't throw the ball very much in the Giants because you got Daniel Jones. That maybe they throw it a little bit more because they gave him the contract this year, but still not a very high floor there. You got Sterling Shepard, coming back from the injury. Oh man, who was the guy they drafted last year? I'm already blanking on him.
Wandell Moore.
Yes, Wandell Moore, and he got injuries as well.
Isaiah there too. I kind of like him as a deep sleeper as well.
Yep, it is just a team full of slot receivers.
Darius Slayton too. Yeah, they have so many guys there,
and there's no really one guy that stands out. So I like the draft capital. They traded up to go get Hyatt too as well. You love seeing that on a team, but it's just like where and when is he going to play is my only question. Mm-hmm. So it's more like I love him long term, but this year he's probably the one in this range that I'm, kind of be shying away from.
Yeah, I agree with you there. What do you think about Marvin Mims? I mean, I'm trying not to get caught up in the hype too much of, the Sean Payton offense coming back. Like, I'm just kind of looking back, like how many times as a head coach took in a year off, came back in and right away led a top offense. I was having a hard time just off the top of my head trying to think of them just while we were sitting here talking.
The only one I can think of right off the top of my head would be the Jaguars last year with Doug Peterson.
Yeah, but
I mean, it wasn't a very high bar set by Urban Meyer, so
that is true. I feel like you or I could have probably came in and at least got the same Urban Meyer there. But then not only that, like I guess the plus for him is it is a guy that Sean Payton and that regime has picked out. But then you got Cortland Sutton there. You still got Jerry Jeudy. Don't know what you're going to get out of Russ necessarily. Like, I was one of those guys that I was a big believer in them last year, and oh my God, I could not have been more wrong. And it was pretty painfully clear by like week 3 or 4 that it wasn't going to get turned around last year either. It was a shit show all around. So I'm trying not to let last year's results influence me too much, but I just have not been able to find myself pulling the trigger on Marvin Mims in any of my rookie drafts so far. I just don't really like the situation, and I feel like I should be more excited about the situation than I am, but I can't get myself pumped about it.
No, I'm kind of I'm in the same boat with you, man. The Broncos didn't have a lot of, another team with not very many picks because of that Russell Wilson trade. So, they traded up to go get Marvin Mims for some reason. A lot of people questioned it. But like you said, when you don't have that many picks, you trade up additionally to go get this guy. They have a plan for
it. With the Saints all the time too. They would always trade up and go get their guys when Sean Payton.
Exactly. So, they have a plan for this guy. It's just my personal opinion of this offense with Sean Payton is they want to be more balanced. Mm-hmm. All right. Now, obviously that can only work if they run the ball, so Samaje Perine, I like him this year. But, that's the thing with Sean Payton. When his offense ran well and was a top offense on the Saints, they were a top 10 rushing team. All right. And that's kind of the only thing is I think his ceiling is absolutely going to be capped just because of what Sean Payton wants to do to this offense. Mm-hmm. He is going to come in and he's going to control Russell Wilson and not make it so he has to have it on his back. At least in my opinion, I think so, because that's what a good coach does.
Yeah,
he spreads the load.
A guy like him, yeah.
Exactly. So, I'm in the same boat as you just because of that grouping of situations. But the news, they wanted to trade Jerry Jeudy. That's possible until week 8 of the regular season.
Yeah.
So, if that happens, sky's the limit for Marvin Mims at that point. But that's the thing. The only way I see him kind of getting consistent playing time is a Jerry Jeudy trade or a Cortland Sutton trade.
Yeah. Which if I was them, that's the guy. If I'm moving somebody, it'd be Sutton. I'd be keeping Jeudy and building around Jeudy and Mims.
Yeah, it's so true. I would be definitely doing that too as well. But we know the NFL doesn't think with their common sense sometimes. I don't know why. I mean, it's as simple as, hey, let's just play the more talented guy. Nah.
Well, it's just like go get the right guy. I mean, like as a Cowboys fan, these last few years have pissed me off so much watching Howie Roseman just like put a clinic on in the drafts and trades. Like there's just like you see some of the trades like the DeAndre Swift for a 4th rounder. It's just like, why did we not make that call? Like
we cut Zeke, but why aren't we going to get him?
Like let's go get Swift and let him and Pollard just be like the most explosive 1-2 back. But no, again, a 4th round pick. But like it's not even just that. I mean, you look at like the guys he got drafted, Jalen Carter clear down to 9. It just seems like the last few years, man, like everything that man touches turns to gold. And then you see, like teams like my Cowboys or like the Raiders. Oh my God, if you want to have a laugh, go look at their 1st round draft history. Like the last 10 years, it's been brutal. Like the one hit that they really had was Josh Jacobs, and he was their 3rd first-round pick in that draft. Like it's crazy.
Pretty sure. What was it? Clelin Ferrell was the first actual first pick for them. I don't think he's on the team anymore.
Yep, he's gone. I saw that they just had like Damon Arnett. Is that his name? First round a couple years ago. So him and Henry Rose were the first rounders in the same group, and now they are both potentially going to prison. So like that's just almost impressive to miss that badly. But anyways, getting distracted here. That rounded out the top 12. We had just a couple of guys we kind of want to give a little honorable mention to. For me, my number 13 and 14, we got Michael Wilson for the Cardinals. I mean, and he could be up even more now after the DeAndre Hopkins news. 14 got Tyler Scott for the Bears. And then we kind of wanted to just kind of throw Kayshon Boutte in there at the end just because, like we mentioned earlier, at one point he was in the conversation for top wide receiver in this class. And, he could be the biggest buy low in this entire class. I don't know that I buy that necessarily, but I can see that if you told me a year from now that he turned it back on and ended up being
wouldn't surprise us
in this class, it wouldn't be the craziest thing.
No, I mean, the biggest thing for me with Kayshon Boutte is like when he was recruited to LSU, an SEC school that is not easy to get into, he was a 5-star recruit. So the talent is there. All right, we found out, though, from the combine, there's not much athleticism. But here's the thing. You look at wide receivers in the league that right now that are dominating. Cooper Kupp, he didn't run a 4.3 speed. He didn't jump a really high vert. Like Devontae Adams, like these are, Michael Thomas when he was killing it. These are guys that, had average athleticism. It's what they do with the ball in their hand and the routes they're running. And I do think Kayshon Boutte is one of those guys. You don't get a 5-star recruit just by, luck. Yeah. So I do think there's talent there. He had a bad year last year. It happens in college. I mean, he's not the only one to do it, but I think the Patriots got a steal here. There's a clear path for playing time behind Devontae Parker, Juju Smith, and Tyquan Thornton. So the Patriots finally got an offensive coordinator. Gotta love seeing that. So, I mean, there's definitely a lot of positivity for me around Kayshon Boutte. To be honest, though, I mean, he's probably going to be a guy I'm either going to be drafting with the last pick, in a draft as just a, really long dart throw, or he'll probably be the guy I pick up on waivers first week because a guy got injured in the training preseason.
Yeah. That's when you want to buy him again. Yeah, exactly. Let him come down and then go get him for free.
Exactly. But yeah, I do agree though, because with the Hopkins news, Michael Wilson does definitely get an uptick in value this year.
He got decent capital too. He went at the end of the 3rd round. I think he was probably like the biggest surprise for me, like out of the day 2 receivers. I thought he was more of like a round 5 type guy. But I mean, it's him and Rondell Moore now there basically, and that's it.
Marquise Brown too.
Oh, that's right, Hollywood Brown. That is right. I forgot about him.
But still, Rondell Moore is not going to be an outside guy. It's going to be Michael Wilson most likely, and then Marquise Brown out there, and then you'll have Rondell being the gadget guy. My only concern is just you have Colt McCoy throwing the ball here, so. That's where I think Rondell Moore gets more of the uptick because with Colt
Another
McCoy
hot take for you, I think Clayton Tune ends up with more starts than Colt McCoy this year. But anyway.
Wouldn't surprise me because I know Colt McCoy's coming off the injury as well. So Michael Tune, man, they've been searching for a consistent backup quarterback behind Kyler Murray forever, and they thought they found it with Colt McCoy last year until he got injured. So I mean, I like that take as well. I want to see it.
In college, man, he put up like straight video game numbers over there.
Did he put up numbers like Bailey Zappi when he came out of college type of deal?
Yeah,
those type of insane numbers.
Here, real quick, I have a spreadsheet here.
Because I know
here where is he? Here, Clayton for Houston, final year. 40 touchdowns, 10 interceptions, threw for over 4,000 yards, completed 68% of his passes, added another 600 yards on the ground with another 5 touchdowns.
Wow, I'm more impressed with the 68 completion percentage right there.
Mm-hmm.
I mean,
on high volume too.
Yeah, with that much, with throwing 4,000 passing yards to have 68% of those completion rating, that's pretty impressive. I mean, we know Kyler Murray, he's not going to be back till late in the year. All right. And he's not going to be back full health. So, I mean, Clayton Tune could be a sneaky little value right there.
Yeah. Well, you guys may just got a sneak peek of 2 of my hot takes for the year. Trying them out here first, see how it feels. Awesome, man. Well, that's pretty much all I got for you today. I appreciate you coming on. This was a lot more fun than just yammering on to myself. We'll have to do this again soon.
Thanks for having me, Jordan. I appreciate it. I look forward to the next.
Yeah, anytime. And then again, before we get out of here, just everybody make sure to hit that like and subscribe button, and then head on over to fantasy6pack.net/plans, become a member, hop into our Discord, send us a message, let us know anything you like, didn't like, things you want us to talk about. But yeah, you'll get access to us directly as well as all of our tools we have on the website. So yeah, you guys have a good holiday weekend, and we'll talk to you guys soon.
Absolutely. You can have these conversations with us on that Discord if you want.
Absolutely.
Happy holidays, guys.
Have a good one.